In January 2006, 24-year-old Jennifer Kess vanished from her Orlando, Florida condo just days after returning from vacation. Her car was missing, her phone was off, and her apartment looked untouched, except the shower was still damp. 2 days later, police found her car abandoned a mile away. Surveillance footage caught a man parking it and walking away, his face hidden perfectly behind a gate post in every frame. Despite hundreds of tips, Jennifer was never found. No one was ever charged. Almost 20 years later, her parents still search for answers. And the haunting security footage remains one of the most frustrating clues in true crime history. What do you think of Jennifer Kess's unsolved case? Emmett Till was just 14 years old when he was brutally murdered in Mississippi in 1955, and the men who killed him walked free. Emmett, a black teenager from Chicago, was visiting relatives in the South. He was accused of whistling at a white woman. Days later, he was kidnapped by two men, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam. They beat him, shot him, and dumped his body in a river. Both men were arrested, but at trial, an all-white jury found them not guilty. Months later, safe from another trial because of double jeopardy, they admitted in a magazine interview that they had murdered Emmett. They never spent a day in prison. Emmett Till's murder became a turning point in the civil rights movement, showing the world the deep injustice of the time. In upstate New York, Stacey Castor seemed like a devoted wife and mother. But behind closed doors, her life was a web of lies and poison. In 2000, her husband Michael suddenly died, ruled a heart attack. Years later, her second husband David was found dead too, this time from antifreeze poisoning. When police looked deeper, they found something shocking. Stacey had also tried to poison her own daughter, Ashley, and stage it as a suicide confession. DNA tests exposed the truth. Stacey was behind both murders. She was arrested and sentenced to over 50 years in prison. Before her death in 2016, Stacey became known as the Black Widow, a woman who used poison to silence the people closest to her. In 1975, Audrey Marie Hilley seemed like a perfect wife and mother from Alabama. But when her husband Frank suddenly died from a mysterious illness, no one suspected anything, until his autopsy revealed arsenic poisoning. Years later, Audrey's daughter began showing the same symptoms. That's when police discovered Audrey had been secretly poisoning her family for years, all for insurance money. She was arrested and sentenced to life, but her story didn't end there. During a prison furlough, Audrey vanished. For years, she lived under a fake name, even marrying another man, until she was finally caught in 1983 after collapsing in the cold. Audrey Hilley's life became one of the strangest tales of greed and deception in small-town America. What do you think of this heinous act by Audrey Marie Hilley? In February 2013, 21-year-old Elisa Lam checked into the historic Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles, a place infamous for strange events and dark history. A few days later, guests began complaining about low water pressure and a strange taste in the tap water. When maintenance workers investigated, they discovered Elisa's body in one of the rooftop water tanks. The strangest part? Elevator surveillance footage from days earlier showed Elisa acting erratically, pressing buttons, hiding, and gesturing as if someone invisible was chasing her. No one knows how she reached the roof or what truly happened that night. Her death was ruled accidental, but the questions surrounding it still haunt the internet to this day. What do you think of Elisa Lam's passing? In 2006, medical student Brian Schaffer went out with friends to celebrate the start of spring break in Columbus, Ohio. The night was normal, laughter, drinks, and goodbyes outside a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. Security cameras caught Brian walking inside around 1:15 a.m., but minutes later, he was gone. He never appeared leaving. Not on the stairs, not on the exits, nowhere. Police searched everywhere. The bar, the cameras, the nearby construction sites, but no trace of Brian was ever found. His phone later pinged miles away, then went silent forever. Nearly 20 years later, his case remains one of the strangest unsolved disappearances in modern history. A man who walked into a bar and vanished without a single clue. What do you think of Brian Schaffer's disappearance? In December 2002, 27-year-old Lacey Peterson was 8 months pregnant and living in Modesto, California. On Christmas Eve, she disappeared. Her husband, Scott Peterson, told police she had gone for a walk with their dog and never came back. For months, the search for Lacey gripped the nation. Then, in April 2003, the bodies of Lacey and her unborn son were found in the San Francisco Bay, near the spot where Scott claimed he had been fishing. Scott Peterson was arrested and later convicted of first-degree murder, sentenced to death in 2005. His case remains controversial, with some arguing he didn't get a fair trial. But to many, he's remembered as the husband who betrayed his wife in the most devastating way. But what do you think about Lacey Peterson's passing? On December 26, 1996, 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey was reported missing from her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. Hours later, her father discovered her body in the basement. She had been strangled and struck on the head. Police also found a ransom note demanding $118,000, but investigators quickly suspected the note was staged. The unusual circumstances, no forced entry, the family inside the home, made the case one of the most puzzling in American history. For years, suspicion shifted between her parents, her brother, and possible intruders. Despite countless theories and media coverage, no one has ever been convicted. Nearly 3 decades later, the murder of JonBenét Ramsey remains unsolved, fueling debate and speculation worldwide. Meredith Kercher was a 21-year-old student from England studying abroad in Italy. On November 1, 2007, she was found dead in the home she shared with roommates in Perugia. The case quickly became international news. Attention soon turned to Meredith's American roommate, Amanda Knox, and Knox's boyfriend, Rafael Solicito. Both were accused of involvement in the crime, even though another man, Rudy Guide, was tied to the murder through DNA evidence. Years of trials and appeals followed, filled with media frenzy and controversy. Eventually, Guide was convicted, while Knox and Solicito were fully acquitted. To this day, the murder of Meredith Kercher remains one of the most debated criminal cases in recent history. In March 1964, 28-year-old Kitty Genovese was walking home in Queens, New York, when she was attacked outside her apartment. Neighbors later admitted to hearing her screams, but few acted right away. Her killer, Winston Moseley, stabbed her multiple times before finally fleeing. By the time help arrived, it was too late. What shocked the public wasn't just the crime, but the reports that dozens of witnesses failed to intervene or call the police. The story of Kitty Genovese sparked outrage and led to studies on the bystander effect, changing how people understood human behavior. It also pushed New York to improve its emergency response systems, making sure cries for help would never be ignored again.